Well, hello there and welcome back to the Chap's Guide, the channel where we talk about men's grooming, lifestyle tips and reviews. And today is a review. I'm going to review this pair of Clark's original desert boots, not just for the product themselves, but where I think they sit in the style world. Now, the Clark's desert boot has been around for 70 years. It's its 70th anniversary this year in 2020. And it's reached almost iconic status. It's worn regularly by royals to the ordinary man and everybody in between. And over time, it's achieved a high level of coolness when you've seen it on the feet of people like Steve McQueen, the Beatles, Bob Dylan. But it has very strongly been sort of selected by the unconventionalists, people who are, somewhat libertarian perhaps in their mind. So you find that the mod culture in the UK wore as part of their identifying style clothing the desert boot. So over years it's achieved this iconic status. But I love to delve into the history of the product before we talk of the product itself, as you will know if you've seen any of my previous reviews. And the Clark's desert boot is something which is very much worthy of having that conversation. So the company behind the boot, Clark's, is an old British heritage company. It's been around since 1825, where it was founded not 25 miles from where I sit now in the town called Street in Somerset. So not too far away. And it's still based there, the Clark Shoe Company. It's global headquarters, although I think it would be fair to say the vast majority, if not all of their products, are now manufactured overseas. Exactly is the same of the case with the desert boot. This pair of shoes was manufactured in Vietnam. So it's not a British product in manufacture, but in design and heritage. So the Clark's company, been around a long time, and as a young kid, I grew up wearing Clark shoes. As most kids of my age and even younger and older, we all wore, little Clark's brogues and things like that to school. And that was, the uniform of my childhood, really, Clark shoes. Today they still produce many children's shoes. My son goes to school wearing Clark shoes today, and also adult shoes. Probably the most iconic of all their products, though, is this desert boot. And that traces its history way back into the 1940s, in fact, World War II era, because one of the children, or certainly one of the scions of the Clark Empire, and Clark, incidentally, I believe is still in some form of family control today, but one of the offspring of the original Clark's family, Nathan Clark, was a soldier, Second World War, and he was going into the Far East campaign, the Burma and that part of the world. And before he went, the company said to him, "Look, Nathan, on your travels, we're always looking for new products to add to the shoe portfolio. Keep your eye open when you're over there. If you see something which would translate back into new products for the Clark's range, take a few samples and we'll see where it goes." So with that in mind, he arrives over in the Far East and he sees that many of his fellow soldiers are not wearing the leather boots which they're issued. They were wearing something similar to this. A very simple construction, suede leather on a crepe sole boot. And he inquired, where'd you get those? Why are you wearing those? And it was because they were far more capable for that theatre of conflict. And he managed to trace them back to a bazaar in Cairo, where these boots were being manufactured and sold to soldiers to meet their specific needs. So he bought a load of samples, brought them back to the UK, presented them to the board at Clark's. Now initially they didn't think that it was the sort of thing which would fly in their product range. But he held strong to his convictions, and Nathan had some samples created and he released them at a shoe fair in 1950 in the USA. And they became very successful. They went into full production and they're still in full production, and it is a very important part of the Clark's range to this very day. So what makes up the iconic original desert boot? And it's a very simple thing in all reality. Now the Clark's boot hasn't changed, and I think if you found one of those original ones way back when, they would look very, very similar, if not identical, to what I hold in my hands here today. And it is a two-part leather upper. The leather traditionally being made of suede, but today you can buy them in wax leather and other constructions, but it is an unlined suede leather upper. And that leather upper, which has a lining to a degree on the sock, but largely unlined, it is sewn directly onto a crepe leather sole. What is crepe, you may ask? It's not something regularly seen in shoe wear. Well, crepe is a coagulated latex product. It's a natural product, comes from the rubber tree, and it is quite a good material for shoes, in fact, or soles, I should say. It's very flexible, so it makes the shoe very flexible. It makes it very comfortable. It conforms readily to your foot. It's fairly grippy in dry conditions, loses some of that adhesion, it's fair to say, in the wet if you were on sort of slick or sheer surfaces, but by and large, quite hard wearing, quite durable. They are normally in this natural colour as you see here, hence they do discolour very quickly, and as you can see, I've been wearing this pair of desert boots for some time, so they have taken on some dirt, but that's perfectly normal. This sole I would expect to give me service, regular use, maybe 5 years, so there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a good solid shoe, and very good all-round boot. Now it's an ankle high boot, and in fact the Clark's Desert boot is the most widely sold Chukka boot in the world today, and has been, I think, probably for the duration of its lifetime, because they're sold in sufficient numbers. Clark sells millions of different pairs of shoes. They've got, I think, more than 1,000 retail outlets around the world. But the Desert boot is an important part of that operation for them. So an ankle length, unlined suede or other form of leather upper, sewn to a crepe sole, and there you have your Desert boot. Very, very simple, very, very iconic. And it's like most of the style greats. The more simple they are, the more they tend to be endeared to people, because they don't go out of fashion. You can buy them in all different colours today, and if you don't like the original sort of very simple browns I've got here, you can buy them in more vivid colours. You can have them in wax leather, black leather, whatever you like, to meet your personal needs. But they are kind of iconic, kind of unchanged. You got to remember that the Desert boot is very much towards the informal end of footwear, and for me personally, I tend to wear them with either blue denim jeans or with chino trousers. I wouldn't wear them with anything more formal than that. They firmly fit into that little category, I would suggest, chaps, just above the most informal shoes, like training shoes, things like that, and very much below your far more formal leather constructed boots. Now the Chukka boot is a boot, so it can be worn beyond just the summer season. It is in fact the most popular Chukka boot in the world, and it has been, I think, for its entire duration of manufacture. But it can be worn outside of the normal season. You would think of summer. So you could wear it in the winter. It's a boot, after all. It protects the ankle. It stops the draft getting to your foot. But it won't withstand excessive rain, I would suggest, because the water would get in through the seam. Although the sole is waterproof, it isn't something you would want to wear in driving bad weather in the snow. After all, it is suede most of the case. So I tend to wear it in the summer and in the warmer parts of the spring and autumn, and then it goes away and comes out next year. So that's kind of where it sits for me, informal. But it transcends the boundaries of formality to a degree, because, as I say, it is worn by royalty. It is worn by everybody in between. So it's something which sits nicely in the wardrobe for those occasions where you just want something a little smarter than a training shoe, but not quite that formal. Price-wise, they're quite cheap. This pair I bought from an outlet store, in fact, near, at the Clark's Village. I'm lucky I live close to it. They cost me £60, but to buy in the stores that you'll find around the world or online, they retail around about £110. However, always worth seeking out those deals. You can get some really good bargains. If you want to go pre-owned, you'll find thousands of them for sale on eBay. But to be honest, because they're so modestly priced and they give such a good return for your money, they'll last you for years and they'll occupy such a good place in your wardrobe. It's one of those things I suggest, chaps, that this is worth biting the bullet, going new, paying the full price if you have to, because you really do get your money back in this pair of shoes. So well worth considering. So for me, I've owned desert boots for the duration of my life. I've owned desert boots from my teens right up to now. I'm 50, so they transcend your age bracket as well. And I probably will never go without having a pair of desert boots in the wardrobe for those occasions that I want to throw them on. Informal, very comfortable, very casual, and they're great just for that. So there you go. My recommendation, definitely worth the money, definitely worth adding to your shoe collection. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Clark's original desert boot today. If you have, I would invite you to please give me a thumbs up. And while you're there, click that subscribe button as well. That way you won't miss any of the future material that we produce here on the Chap's Guide, which will benefit you going forward on your journey towards Chap Nirvana. So, until the next time we meet, I bid you well. I hope you stay in good shape and stylish as well. And I look forward to meeting you again very soon.